And that's it. We are live. It's so quick and easy, Halima. Thank you for joining me today, Halima Ferreira, who is joining us to talk for the next 45 minutes on all the beautiful things you do. You have been a professional chef for over 20 years. You specialize, now you're specializing in food and its relationship to the body and healing and science, which I'm super, super interested in. You are also a feminist who's elevating her fellow humans around her, especially in that world of chefery or whatever we could call it. And
Yes.
but Halima, we've talked a couple of times, and I love your energy. I love what you're doing, and I'm so glad that you could join us today. So thanks for joining us. How are you?
Thank you. Really well, thank you. So excited to speak to you today. I think it's a great platform, and hopefully this will impact somebody, and that's why we do it, right? If we can impact at least one person every day with what we do, what we say, or potentially some encouragement, then I've done something great.
That's what it's all about. Can you introduce yourself? Tell the community, who you are and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. Well, the last 20 years has been quite a journey. I grew up in Southern Africa, trained out there, and then I came over to Europe. I think it was about 2004, really early. Started at the bottom. Started rock bottom of my career in culinary. I just graduated, so there was still so much to learn. It was a different ball game, total game changer coming over to Europe. So I started from sweeping floors in a bakery, worked my way to going on to cruise ships for 5 years, traveling around the world. And that was, it's amazing culinary school to be on ships. You work with 63 different nationalities at the time. You go to countries you've never heard of, you learn about cuisine. So that was, great training. And then from there, I ended up on a private yacht, and from private yachts into chalets and seasonal work. And then from there, that was the grounding to get into private service. And then I worked my way into palaces in the Middle East. So yeah, from the bottom to the top.
It's not about the destination, it's the journey, right?
It's the journey. But I've learned so much in that time. And I think that the impetus of change for me came when the pandemic hit us. And I was in the Middle East. I was actually miserable. I was working 15-hour days. Sometimes I didn't know when I'd have my day off. It'll be 10 days before I even had a day off to myself. You're flying 3 times a week. It was super intense. And I was like, well, what am I doing here? The pandemic hit us, and I didn't really know who I was anymore. I just fell into this world that I'm a private chef and this is what I need to do. So I chose to come home, pretty much lost everything, and I had to start rebuilding myself. So it was a really difficult time. My mental health struggled. I went through the depression like most people, the anxiety of not knowing where, your income's going to come from. We didn't know anything, right? We didn't know we get to this point now where things are kind of starting to normalize. But over that time, I have to say, Nick, it really taught me. I found some amazing people, some amazing tribes to join, created support networks for myself, and really found out who I was and what I wanted to do. And I said, well, when things lift up, I don't want to go back to doing what I was doing. So what do I change? How can I change it? How do I take my tool set and then turn it around? So I've been studying through the Health Sciences Academy, and it's pretty amazing. I'm studying Detox and toxicology, level 5 diploma through them. I studied plant-based nutrition, food as medicine. I've onboarded with a lifestyle medicine team here in the UK who also work on the NHS. I joined the Burn Chef Project, which is another interesting thing we can speak about, which is working to eradicate mental health stigma in our industry. It was, there was a support group where there was coffee and a chat during COVID. So that became something. And, so a lot changed for me. A lot of people, a lot of my friends who were into wellness in different ways, from intuitive healing to psychology, to all kinds of things, actually introduced me to a world of different things, to meditation, breath work, things that we'd never been taught, right? So in a high functioning environment, especially in service, we were never taught, you constantly fight or flight. So the pandemic taught me it gave me a lot of time to retrain, re-educate. There was so much resource available. And I worked and I honed in on skills. So from hospitality and tourism management, leadership skills, picking up everything on understanding how to eat better, how to look after myself better, self-care. It was like, what was self-care before that, right? So a lot of this really opened up for me, over the time. So was the pandemic hard? Absolutely. But I'm so grateful for that time because it's elevated me to another level of where I am today, changing my career and becoming a creative director of my own company. I'm working on a prototype of a really great health and a detox snack. So I'm working on that to come to market soon. So it's elevated things to me. And I'm grateful and I'm humbled by that. And I can't say thank you to the people that I have around me and the amazing support networks. Without them, I wouldn't be here today. So
it's wonderful, and to think about, I as you're speaking, I'm thinking about your 20 years and on your struggle from the bottom to the top of being a private chef in these most amazing places, and I think that as humans from a young age, and we can talk about you growing up in Portugal and your family and your father and the influence of family around you, which I want to get into, but also the 20 years of our life, we think that's most of us. I used to think that, I was here to be either a professional athlete or a professional broadcaster or a CEO of a digital agency. And I worked on all of that stuff for years and years and years. And it wasn't until I was 45 years old that some things happened in my life where, from the time I was mid-20s to 45, which was 20 years, I thought that my career was my purpose. And much like you, except it wasn't the pandemic, it was just other events in my life, something in me found purpose, and I think that when my life changed, my language changed, my enthusiasm for everything changed, because I finally discovered that I wasn't here to make X amount of money or to be on a TV screen or to do this or to run a big successful company at certain in advertising. It was to help other people, and that was how I set up my business, was really just so we can hold each other. We're just humans on this planet having an experience. Let's hold each other while we go through these experiences, so that if we do have to fight or flight or freeze, we've got people around us to support us. And I really love the fact that, you're so passionate now. Well, I'm sure you were a passionate chef, and we'll get into that, but you're so passionate now about your role, your purpose, and what you're trying to do now. And I love that. But let's go back to 20 years and let's go up growing. I want to kind of get into the family, because I've read through your website and I know your father was a big influence in your life. And I really like to get into that because, our childhoods do mold us and set us up for certain things and set us up for certain beliefs. And everyone has different versions of their childhood and realities of their childhood, and everyone fits a certain norm. But talk about I'm really interested to know about Portugal, because I love Portugal. I just got back from there, and what it was like growing up there and the relationship with food that people have in different countries. But what was your relationship with food growing up? And like I said, maybe get a little bit into your father and the influence that he had on you.
So my dad was actually born in Mozambique. And then I was born in a country called Malawi and spent the first 9 years of my life there. And then I grew up in Southern Africa. So South Africa has a massive Portuguese community, really, really big community. So growing up with food, in the home, it's one of those things where there's always enough food for everybody. Someone can walk through the door and, it's very much that sort of culture where, pull up a chair and come join us. It's very much that sort of thing. My dad, I guess, being, he was very much a foodie. He loved seafood. So we had a lot of like prawns. And I mean, the prawns in Mozambique are absolutely massive. So, it's like mini lobsters over here, I guess. And, he loved grilled foods. He was very particular. He loved to cook. It wasn't something that I particularly wanted to do. I mean, my mother as well, she's a phenomenal cook. She's very good. She bakes, she cooks, she's brilliant. But it's also, I think, ingrained in you. A lot of my cousins and my aunts, and it's food, right? Everything's surrounded around food. Everything you do, from birthdays, religious holidays, whatever it is, it's always around the table. So growing up with like having a bit of red wine mixed with a bit of water in it, so you start getting used to that as kids. That's, how it kind of started for us. And then always a hustle and bustle around the table. Maybe there was like a barbecue outside And then mum would be in the kitchen, or my grand's cooking, and, dad would sometimes get involved. So food was just something that was always there, right? There was, there's a memory I remember with my dad where on a Saturday, he'd go and get a fresh baguette. He'd pull out the insides and put loads of butter in the middle. And that was like his thing, But as kids, it was like, oh yeah, there's this thing. And this was our thing for a Saturday. Like there's nothing better than butter and bread, in Portugal. Portuguese people, I don't know a Portuguese person that doesn't love bread. So yeah, I guess, mum and dad are both foodies, and we traveled a lot. And then having grown up in, South Africa, the cuisine, it's such a melting pot. There's loads of different cultures involved there. I went to boarding school, so I was exposed to a lot of different things there as well. And then traveled with friends, just growing up. And it wasn't something I enjoyed food, but it wasn't something I was like, oh my goodness, when we had all the home ec sort of classes, I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. It's not my thing. But I think it was when I was 21, 22, and I was in the States, and I took 2 years off to work and travel. And I was like, well, I need to pick something up. And that's kind of when, cooking came into being, where I was like, well, I don't actually know how to cook, and this might be a good skill. And I went to the New England Culinary Institute in Vermont just to visit, because I was in Vermont visiting. And I was like, well, let me just go and look at a culinary school. Let me just go and see what this is all about. And I saw a chef segmenting a grapefruit. And to be honest, I really wish I'd got that chef's name, because today I'd be like, because of you, I went to culinary school. And, he was in this pristine uniform, and the way he, segmented this grapefruit with such elegance. And I was like, I'd really like to learn how to do that. It's something so simple, but that was something I remember that set me off to say, right, I want to learn a skill that I can use anywhere in the world. Because there's one thing people need to do, and that's eat, right? So in any country you travel to, food is a thing for everybody. And that's sort of how the journey came into it. Africa has, it'll always be the homeland for me. A lot of meat, a lot of seafood, the vegetables, obviously everything grown there tastes so different to anywhere else in the world. The soil's different too. So when it rains there, I can't explain how there's a smell, when the rain just touches the earth, that earthiness. There's something, you only get that in Africa, which is so precious, So there's a lot of that came into being. But then I think a lot of influence came into me as well through traveling, through exposing myself to different cultures and being open to learning. And I had an Indian client that took me to India actually, and sent me to all his favorite restaurants and hotels to work with chefs for food and recipes that he absolutely loved. And the reason why was to understand the Indian palate, to understand the sweet, savory, salty, spicy kind of, to understand that, to be able to replicate this. And then the Middle East, I had somebody brought in to train me and teach me how to make everything. And again, understand the Arabian palate and their food and their culture, because you cannot work for people if you don't understand them, right? And food is a big part of so many people I work for, especially in service. If you work in the Middle East, food is second to religion, right? It is, especially over Ramadan. You cannot, there's something so unique about it that this is important for them. So you need to get it right. So I'm grateful for those opportunities, because now I've got that I've got that in my arsenal, basically, to bring out. So it's been quite a journey. But every experience, good and bad, is an experience, and everything has taught me something for the next journey, the next kind of, leg to go on. So with understanding the different flavors and flavor profiles around the world, this is where the wellness side comes into it, where I'm saying, healthy food doesn't need to be, look at you and go, oh, I really don't want to eat that. It's just not what I want. So it's trying to get flavor profiles and saying, well, how can we create this food and make it look sexy, basically, and I want to eat it, and it's good for you. And then also, it's not boring. It's not just salt and peppers. You can go the Mexican way, you can go Indian way. I mean, you look at Ayurveda, you look at the Indian food, and there's so much amazing stuff in the vegetarian, cookbooks and things. It's just phenomenal. So there's so much to draw from. but it's using that innovation to create things that are personalized for each client now, and being able to help them heal through journeys, and saying, well, you know, some of my clients have come out of hospital, or, you know, really struggling with certain things and have to really strip back a little bit. So we do strip back and then introduce things, but it's trying to say, okay, oh, I really feel like something sweet. Great. But then let's make it out of, you know, dates or prunes or something else, and that we know it's beneficial to you. So it's not processed, or it's not processed sugar to add to your inflammation or something. So every day is a journey for me. Every day is a learning day. Every day is a school day. You know, you never stop learning in this field. So yeah, it's been quite a, you know, I'm excited for where it's going to go, really.
Yeah. I would like to, like, there's a couple of things I want to pull out of that, but the last thing is that, you know, what about people, you know, like right now, everyone's kind of struggling with going to the supermarket and trying to get their weekly groceries in terms of budgets, especially, you know, people who are on lower incomes that have families to support. Yeah. Where's the space for, you know, just trying to get some food on the table to get your kids so that they have energy to go to school, but also this balance where, you know, people are saying, well, you know, I can't be one of, you know, one of her high-end clients that can afford to spend all this money on all of these wonderful ingredients. So how do you kind of adjust for that and make sure that, you know, is this kind of eating for everybody, or do you have to be super rich to be able to do it?
No, you know, if you look at whole grains, you look at beans, you look at lentils, they're pretty, you know, it's pretty cheap to buy it. I think the main thing here, Nick, is education. It's educating people, because low income, unfortunately, you know, I mean, the high end as well, they do eat a lot of junk. I mean, you'll be amazed. In the Middle East, you'll see so many, every franchise that's American, you know, your Shake Shacks, etc. But then you look in the UK as well, if we just look within us, the obesity, you know, if you look at it, people aren't educated enough. People don't know what an aubergine is. People don't know what a stick of broccoli is. Some people have never eaten a raspberry. I didn't know this until recently, when I've teamed up with, you know, the lifestyle medicine doctors I'm working with, and they were like, the kind of patients that they are working with are these kind of people. They can't afford a lot, right? So then how do we help them? So what we're planning on doing is doing sort of shopping trips with them. So once a month is actually going into a store that's affordable, say, for example, Aldi, Lidl, which are still really good quality, and you can come out with a shop for a week for like 30 quid. I mean, we did it just to do a run in the store of basic things like, you know, like say a soya yogurt and soya milk or something, and then your basic veg and how to make, utilizing one vegetable for maybe 2 or 3 things, you know. So it's an education, and what we would like to go and do with everybody is take them on a shopping tour, in essence. You know, grab your trolley, let's go together, let's educate you on how can I eat and feed my family for a week on, say it's 30 quid or it's 50 quid, and how can we make that last? So we're working on that to be able to help and educate people. And the doctor's always speaking to them saying, we need to incorporate more fiber into the diet. That's one way of reversing you know, disease, basically. So preventing, treating, and reversing disease is all through what you're putting into your body and how much of it, and, you know, the carbs, etc. So it's all, everything's important, but in understanding what's on the labels of jars, you know, there's so much that, you know, people who can't afford a lot buy everything in a jar, and it's not necessarily great for you because there's so many stabilizers in there, there's loads of yucky stuff. So it's sort of saying, well, let's get a tin of tomatoes, and how do we make a basic tomato sauce, you know? So it's creating a platform that people can go and watch and say, oh, actually, I need a tin of tomatoes, maybe some basil. What's basil? Some of them don't even know. You know, it's really a problem. It really is a problem. And I didn't realize it until, you know, pretty much probably about 6 months ago, that I couldn't understand, because I've worked for the other end of the spectrum where, you know, I have a credit card and I spend and people know what everything is. But then on the other side, people have no idea of what really good food is. To them, it's like, oh, we're going to get some bread, jam, I don't know, peanut butter, pick out like, you know, all these ready meals and packs and things. And McDonald's is part of a kid's meal, you know, a candy bar and Coke in the morning. And you see it so much on the streets, right? So for us, it's very much educating patients within clinics and within our own private consultations, of educating them, supporting them through. I do a pantry revamp. So I'll charge like 25 quid, and I'll be like, okay, right, we're going to do a whole pantry revamp. So we're going to go through your fridges. We're going to go through the dry store cupboards. What do you have now? Where do we want it to be? And why are we changing that? And a lot of people have found that really informative to be, oh, okay, I've got this. I'm like, okay, you've got it. We need to use it. We're not going to waste it. But however, after that, what are we replacing it with? So it's very much about education. And I think this is where we being led as a team to really educate, spend time on the ground with people that, we've had a patient, the doctors have actually reversed diabetes with, a couple of their patients. And I mean, that's massive. And that's just diet, education, understanding what you're eating, learning to cook these things. So whole grains, pulses, people don't know. So, I mean, the great thing is we have canned beans, canned lentils, things like that to start with. But most people don't know how to cook that, how to flavor profile it, and make it tasty, right? Yeah. I mean, it's all education. And I think this is where the goal is, to really educate people about what they're eating, what they're buying, what they're putting in their mouths, being mindful where they're eating it, how they're eating it, are they chewing it? Because that also helps. The psychology of food is another thing. So if you taking someone, just say we dealing with somebody who's got obesity, high blood pressure, etc. So right, okay, and they love their McDonald's and they love their processed sugars, etc. So you can't take everything away, but then you find replacements that can be used and say, well, okay, candy bar, okay, we need this. Okay, let's teach you how to make something that is with a natural sugar or a coconut sugar or something that will be better for you. Okay, you like burgers, but why don't we teach you how to make something at home with less of the yucky stuff in it, and it's actually better for you.
It seems like I love the fact that it's about, it's almost about educating people, but it's almost kind of like re-educating and getting people to, because I think intrinsically, inherently, we have evolved with a relationship with the earth and with food. And I think over the last 100 years, and since the beginning of processed foods, and a small group of people making a lot of money by selling not very good stuff to people, white bread as an example, right?
No, exactly.
Sugars, they're basically just part of this mechanics of capitalism, where advertising and junk food it's like we've become disconnected from our humanness and our relationship with the earth and with food. So it's almost like a re-education needs to happen, not with regards to just what's in your pantry, but also in our relationship with each food, other, and with the earth. And it's, for me, that's something that's just coming into light, where it's like, how have we evolved? And we've evolved, with all these plant medicines and, all these things that, like you say, with good diets, illnesses and inflammations have been reduced, and people have become actually cured from illnesses by changing their diet. So it's not really a hard sell. It's just, an education, but also people need to become less lazy, I think, because it's, for me, that's what it is. It's just such a convenience. I live in Soho. I live, by myself primarily, and I'll go do some work, and then, there's this new restaurant that's just opened up, and they give locals a 15% discount. So I'm just going to go get that food, and then I'll stop by my confectionery at the corner and get a chocolate bar to eat while I watch Netflix, or a donut or something. And it's such an it's not really I know that there's a better way. I'm just lazy, and I go for convenience.
It's very much that.
It
takes planning. It takes planning.
And giving people the incentive to do it, that it's more than just healthy eating. It's like you feel just better in life, right?
But I think there's been a change, and there is a major shift with this. And I had a company contact me the other day and ask me, what do you think the trends are going to be for Christmas this year? And I was like, well, Christmas is Christmas. There's always going to be new stuff coming out. But I said, why can't we focus on sustainability of the planet? Why can't we reuse and be wise about what we're using, make better health choices, like have your Christmas dinners, etc. But then the waste over Christmas is insane. So why don't we reuse these things and rehash things into different recipes and And I really believe that this is something that needs to happen, and people are being conscious of it. I mean, bread and milk are two of the most wasted items in most kitchens.
Are they? Yeah.
Yeah. And then you get your broccoli stems or whatever it is. We can make that into soups. You can cut them up and grill them. I mean, there's so many things, but it's educating, right?
Okay. So grilled broccoli stems with a bit of butter and
yeah. Well, exactly. That's it. You can just make it really nice.
Isn't it funny that we spend all this time preparing a Christmas meal, but for me it's Boxing Day and the day after Boxing Day having the leftovers for
better. Exactly. Lots of things to eat. Yeah.
Bubble and squeak is just it's the best. Just bung it all in a frying pan and
hash, right? It's like a hash. So just chuck it. You've got potatoes, you've got your turkey, you've got your stuffing, and it's just being creative. And I think this is where I think chefs need to help out a little bit and say, hey, we're going to come up with some really cool recipes. And I think there's a lot of people, I've seen that. I saw that last year actually, saying, oh, what can we do with leftovers? And whether it's soups or, turning it into a casserole of some sort. But this is the way we need to look at it. So food is becoming super expensive. This is the next thing. Yeah. So we need to look at, okay, how many people actually get food at Christmas? How many people have it donated? How many people? So what is it that they're getting? And then how can we make this fun for them to eat? How can we make it nutritious for them to eat? So it's going to take a while. I do believe it's going to take a while, but there's definitely a movement going on. There's definitely a lot of us working on things.
Well, we need people like you doing what you guys are doing, and I can say I just the second that you and I met, I felt purpose in your voice. But I'm interested to know once again, and I want to go back into those 20 years. What was it like as a woman, in these traditionally masculine environments? What were the hurdles that you needed to go through to get to where you are, and how is that changing?
There is change, but it's going to take time. I think this is, I'll let you know about, the Burnt Chef Project has helped me a lot with that, in the last couple of years. But growing up, not having any support, being a woman, fighting to get to the top, it's a constant fight. There's sexual abuse. There's, I remember being thrown in a fridge. I was an apprentice and my sous chef was an absolute nightmare. And he threw me into a fridge. And I just sat there. I was just singing and my head chef eventually came to look for me, but he threw me into a fridge and he was just absolutely mad at whatever it was for the day and something hadn't been done properly. But instead of teaching me and showing me the right way, you want to get into this mood. So kitchens are very hostile. It's not an environment for everybody. We need more women to come up, but we also need to change the environment of, gone are the days of screaming and shouting and yelling at people. I've been through all that. And then working on cruise ships, I would say the sexual harassment is terrible. They just take for granted that you're a woman and you'll just be submissive or whatever it is. And then when you do fight against it, you're fighting it against an army of a lot of different things. And some people, I remember it happened once and, I went to report it and it had to go further because the person who was my upline to report it to was kind of just pushing it under the carpet, right? Just saying, well, this happens. I'm like, no, it's not okay. So more of us need to be standing up to say, no, it's not okay. You're not going to speak to me in that tone of voice. If you want to speak to me, you speak to me the way you'd like to get spoken to. And yes, it's stressful, but you know what? What does it take, Nick, to just take 2 seconds of your time in a higher rank with someone who's learning and say, hey, you know what? I'd appreciate it if you did it this way next time. Or, I've had more of an amazing response when I've done it that way, instead of yelling at somebody. Because then you're just breaking their confidence even more. Then the fear factor comes in. And then you're starting a whole, it's opening like a Pandora's box there, with stuff like that. So the kitchen culture is changing. We are fighting to do that. That's why I'm part of the Burnt Chef Project. We are fighting to eradicate mental health stigma in our industry to save lives, because there's a lot of suicide, there's a lot of depression, there's a lot of self-harming, there's a lot of this. It's real, right? And I've seen it. I see it all the time. I get phone calls. I'm at an event, I had that a couple of weeks ago, and I was at an amazing event and I'm getting text messages say, oh, there's this guy, I don't know who he is, and somebody wants to commit suicide, or is threatening to commit suicide, right? But then that's also, how they were treated. Then there's a money factor, a lot of changes within, just the world and the way things are happening, pay, all of that. And also, just as a woman, you know, I was paid differently. I was paid differently for a while. So that did change, and it is still something that is changing. And I guess in private service it's a bit different, but you know, pay was different, different rules. Women were always stuck into sort of, you were never put onto the sauce sections. You were always put into pastry. You were always put into like the garde manger, so salads and cold sections and things like that. So it's changing, but back in the day, it was like you'd look at the sauce guys and think, oh, well, I really want to learn about that. I want to spend more time learning about meats and sauces, but you weren't ever thrown on those. They never really trusted women to do it. So, you know, it's taken generations, right, to get there. And it's going to take a couple more decades for us to really change things. And there are a lot of amazing women and female chefs coming up. I'd love to see more women in private service, to be honest. There's not a lot. But it's an intense environment. I have to say this, it's also a personality driven thing. You either have it or you don't, and you'll either make it, because the way I was taught was like, if your chef screams at you or yells at you, you never cry, you never break in front of your team. You go behind and you'll cry and you'll vent, etc. But in today's world, it's like, well, you know, life is hard, right? Sometimes things are difficult. So we need to be more approachable as managers. We need to have more patience to train our teams and have that time to actually sit with them and say, right, you know, because it's a dying skill. You know, I don't know if you know about that, but hospitality is really suffering globally because people want to leave the industry because of the abuse, the long hours, the unsociable times. You always working, you sacrificing. I've sacrificed years without family because I'm traveling with the client or because they need me. So I have to be with them, right? So you do find these things, but I think with women, I'm seeing, you know, in the kitchens that there are more women coming in and there's more female teams coming up. I actually worked with an amazing team recently in London. It was just stumble, you know, an agent called me and said, Halima, can you help us out today? I didn't know where I was going. But from the time I walked in, would you like a coffee? So normally you're given a really crappy cup of coffee, which is, you know, there's coffee and there's coffee, right? So no, this was like, well, do you want a cappuccino, a latte? I was like, what do you mean? I'm just somebody working here. And they're like, no, you're allowed to have a nice coffee. From that being taken in, well, you know, you're allowed to eat whatever you want for lunch. You know, okay, it's a corporate environment. So yes, okay, the food was amazing. There was an all-female team. The way they work together, the organization, the mentorship, the leadership in there, absolutely phenomenal. I've never seen it. And I actually said to the executive chef, what you are doing needs to be make modeled elsewhere because I've never seen that. And it's nice to see, right? It's just nice to see women working with women and encouraging them, because that can be quite difficult.
I think it's a testament to, like, say, the last 20 years when chefs like Marco Pierre White and Gordon Ramsay and Jamie Oliver, like, they've had these huge media pushes and elevated into these positions where, you know, Gordon Ramsay yells at people because, he's like, well, that's the way I was taught. But people almost, they find it so entertaining that they think that is what it is. You know, they think that's when really the guy should, like, it's abuse. You know, he should be like not punished, but he should be held accountable for that kind of talking, rather than held to kind of some esteem and given this huge platform that he's been given. And it was, I was researching as you were just talking there. It's Asma Khan. She's the chef, or the woman who owns Darjeeling Express that we were talking. And you know, these and what you're doing, these need platforms, because you know, when I ate at her restaurant just during the pandemic, it was very limited service, and she came around and she was telling her story, and she said to me, she goes, you know, when we grew up in the kitchens, it was, you know, mainly, you know, mums and grandmoms and sisters who were doing the cooking. And she said when she came to the UK, she would see the door of kitchens open up at Indian restaurants, and it would be all men. And she'd be like, that's weird. And then she's now made this beautiful restaurant in Covent Garden where it's an all female staff. And I think it's I don't know, it's beautiful to be able to watch people take their power back and say, just because it was done like this back then doesn't mean it didn't work back then, and it's not now. So enough.
Yeah.
enough Gordon Ramsay BS, and let's go
Yes.
to the true essence of people making food because it's coming from here and outwards.
The
It's a
heart.
love. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know,
Yeah.
Nick, just to add on to that, I mean, recently I've been working with the community locally as part of what I, have chosen to do as, a mental health advocate and supporting women in other cultures. And I've really branched out because I do, I work with Islam Channel and I'm a TV chef for them. So I've branched out to a different world there where I've reached out to women in the Islamic community, supporting them, encouraging them. And, there's been some stories I've heard where these women can cook, but why do they cook? The suppression in their own homes, the abuse they go through, their husbands not giving them money to be able to have money for themselves, to just go to a store and buy whatever they want. So what have they had to do? They cook to sell that food, to have financial independence. And, that really triggered me. And I was like, okay, this is really a pathway for me. This is, if I can support someone in business, if I can just be there, and it's not, I do stuff pro bono. It's not all about money here. It's about creating community, creating the real support network, because I want them to pay it forward. I've done it for you. I want you to pay it forward to the next person, right? Because somebody else will be struggling. Somebody else will need this support and help. So what have I taught you? Then you take that and then you teach the next person and bring it into your teams. And that's something I've been working on recently, and it's really opened my eyes to things, just listening to women talking, hearing their stories, in these different communities. And I'm gobsmacked. I'm like, it's 2022. It's not 1905, right? But there's still some stoic and, I just want to call the dinosaur mentality, in some of these cultures. And it is what it is. And I respect cultures for what they are. But I just believe there needs to be a change. Women are incredibly powerful when they work together. Empowered women empower women, right? And that's it. It just needs to happen. People need to do it more. And unfortunately, a lot of women will be like, oh, women can be very bitchy. Yes, 100% competitive. But why don't we take that aside and say, why don't we walk in everyone's got their own journey. My journey is not the same as yours. But what strengths do you have? What strengths do I have? And how can we bring those together? And then how can we do something together and collaborate? You see, instead of seeing each other as a threat.
I think that's the thing is, as you're speaking too, it's like not the kitchens don't have, they're not for just men or just women. Right. They are for nourishers. They are for healers. They are for people. Everybody needs to be nourished, Absolutely. So it is the ultimate place of coming from a place of love, which is, it's the ultimate power, right? Is to give unto yourself by preparing food for your tribe, for your people, so that they can be nourished. And you didn't have to be a man or a woman to do it. No. And I think this is the thing, is that we need to undo all of the power structures, and I think it's some men trying to hold on to some power and using their power to suppress, and I think that what we are on the rise now, where other men are holding those men to accountability, saying enough is enough of this, things need to change. And I think it's just about creating more compassionate workspaces where we come to elevate, power up rather than power down, as one of my mentors always says, right? The power comes from this way. And it's happening thanks to people like you, and thanks to, the work that you're doing. We are on this shift, and we are on the rise to making more compassionate workplaces. So, I love what you're doing.
Thank you. Thanks, Nick. It's a journey, every day you learn something, you meet someone. And what I've learned is that everyone has a struggle. So if you can choose to be something in a day, be kind, there's no need to be an ass every day. Like, we all have it. I'm guilty of it. I've done it. But, can I be a better person every day? I work on that every single day. So, if I can help somebody and pick them up, that's a strength right there, pick them up. And, I can't tell you how proud I am of some of these women I've worked alongside recently, and hearing their struggle, their love and support is just phenomenal, like within themselves and working together. And it gives them purpose to work together and build something or be part of a team. And it's just so amazing to see. And I think also in kitchens, balancing the male and female hormones, it's a good thing. It needs to be, because it's very testosterone based, but then you put the women in. And the only thing that I would say is a struggle I've had with some female chefs, bar the one I mentioned, from a couple of months ago that I worked with, who I have absolute respect for her. Like, she was kind. She took her time to just spend time with me, to show me what she does, and just got to know her. And, you know, you weren't just a number for the day. You were who you were, right? And I just feel, you know, with some women, it's a power struggle. It's like, oh no, you know, I've been into so many, oh, I'm the executive chef of this. I'm like, no, I don't care who you are. What's your name? Who are you? I don't need you to tell me who you are, because you're obviously feeling threatened, right? That's what comes up a lot. And instead of that, just being, hey, you know, let's team up together. And leading to that, Nick, is why I've, you know, teamed up with 28 ladies, actually, all chefs. It's a people of color cookbook, and it's an activist movement of, you know, sharing generational stories. It's inspiration, it's preservation, and also working as women, you know, whatever sexual orientation you are, whatever color you are, it doesn't matter, but it's being a part of this. And I just think more of us need to be involved in this sort of thing, and just paying attention to, you know, because let's face it, people of color have had, it's a struggle, right? It's been a struggle. It's still a struggle. And, you know, coming alongside other incredible human beings, you know, with so much history. And for me, it's just like, it's another world for me. You know, it's just opened another world of being able to support and be a part of amazing things and changes. And it's historic for me to see this happening. So, you know,
I think it's amazing. You know, something that I wanted to get into a little bit while ago and I know we're on to, you know, more of a movement and more of an awakening where people are becoming aware of their power and becoming aware of elevating each other in these traditionally masculine environments. But I want to kind of go into the food thing. I know, because we're running out of time quickly, but
it's getting quick.
What's the importance of how food looks to, you know, just like I normally, I'll have a frying pan, I'll kind of just dump things out onto a plate. But when I've seen some of your stuff and the intricacy that goes into how food looks, how important is it that, you know, people say you eat with your eyes first?
100% you do.
But so how much work actually goes into presentation and preparation?
A lot of thought. You need to think about it. So it's not just about the dish you create. You'll come up with the dish, and then you have to think about the cooking process of that. You think about the plate it's going to go on and how it's going to look. So sometimes you'll draw a sketch of how you want that to go. So, you know, you've got your carb, your protein, your veg, and it's always 3 to 5 ingredients necessarily. You know, sometimes it's a lot more, depending, you know, if it's Michelin star, obviously there's a lot more thought in Michelin style food, but then it's your tweezers come out and you've got more time for that. But I think it depends on it doesn't matter what it is, you know. Then there's the dirty food. But dirty food still looks good, right? You still got, just say, like, loaded fries, but it's how you load those fries, you know, the color and what's striking. You're like, oh, I really want to eat that, and what's it got on it? So a lot of thought comes into that. You do need to think about, you know, the color on a plate, the textures on a plate. It's your canvas. And I think you've seen me with paintbrushes, right? Because I enjoy painting food, and it was just something that came into being where, you know, for me, I make a mess. It's basically at an event, if I know what your favorite dessert is, and I've created these perspex boards that I sort of paint desserts on, and I'll find out, oh, Nick likes chocolate brownie with ice cream, but then how will I deconstruct that for you in front of you and create some theatre and some fun around a table, potentially even get you involved, you know, like crumbing it, squishing it, you know, and then bottles of things, you know, whether it's like a really great creme anglaise or something, you've got ice cream dollops on there, and you've got, I don't know, maybe popping candy or something. But it's trying, you know, making things fun, making people, you know, they're intrigued to want to eat it. Because I'll be honest with you, I've seen like nutritional books when I was studying my plant-based nutrition, there was just like a can of red kidney beans and mashed avocado, and I was like, yeah, I know maybe it's got all this nutritional value, but I don't want to eat that. But perhaps if you did it this way, or put a dressing into this and added some parsley into that or whatever, it would make it more appealing. So you do eat with your eyes first, but then also it's the psychology of what you see, your stomach acid, you know, you start salivating, So that creates the digestive. It's a whole process. It's the whole mindfulness of it. So there's a lot to it. You know, there's a psychology to it.
Yeah. I'll have to get you on another time soon, and we can get into that, because my mouth is just watering.
Just thinking.
And the thing that I want is a burger.
Right? Yeah.
For the last 45 minutes, it's just come up with a burger and maybe some brownies for dessert. So
some brownies for dessert. There you go.
Yeah. Oh, Halima, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. I'd like you maybe just to offer your any details that you would like to let people out, and anything that you've got going on, just let people know. But you can also text them to me, and I'll put them in the Facebook feed so people have them. So, you know, what events have you got coming up, or what would you like anyone to be aware of?
I think I'm working with the Burn Chef Project a lot, and you know, if anyone needs support, so it's not just, I mean, we work with hospitality, but we have a 24/7, you know, sort of support network app. So if people are struggling, it's anonymous, and they just want someone to talk to, we have that. We've got free resource on there. Afternoon Tea with Doctors, or the doctors team that I'm also working with. They're lifestyle medicine doctors, majority all female team, which is pretty amazing. And through together, we are working to treat, prevent, and cure chronic disease. So if you're struggling, there's a platform on Afternoon Tea with Doctors. You can come up, and it's all free, same as the Burnt Chef. So there's resource for health, nutrition, getting advice. Also, on Afternoon Tea with Doctors, every Sunday at 5 o'clock, there is a Zoom, and it's absolutely free for you to register. And we have specialists, so from chronic pain management to you know, diabetes, whatever it is, you can have access to doctors and actually have a chat, because you only have 7 minutes on the NHS. So, but if anyone wants, you know, a consultation with me, or, you know, to go through a detox plan, or needs help, you know, navigating that, please, you know, my website's tailoredtaste.co.uk. And pretty much if you put my name into Google, Halima Ferreira, you'll see all the different things that I'm involved in. And, you know, there are some projects I can't talk about yet, but you know, watch the space. Things are changing. So yeah, I'd love to be able to help in any way I can.
Yeah, you know, as you were talking, I know that when maybe we'll talk about this offline, I'll say goodbye, so don't hang up. But thanks everybody for joining us at the Elephant and Castle community for Halima's chat today. I will put her details in the Facebook feed if you want to get in touch with her about anything that we've talked about today. So, you know, thank you so much for joining us. Halima, thank you for joining. Please don't hang up.
Thank you.
And then I'll see everybody. I'll see my normal crew at 11 a.m. For Tough Through Tender. But I'm also going to be putting out another conversation topic for people, and another Zoom link in the feed too. So stay tuned for that. Thanks everybody for joining us today, and we'll see you Thursday. Bye.